Yeah. Hi guys, this is Connie. I'm gonna do an episode of Connie Reads, another fine myth. We are on... Which are we on? We are on chapter 11. One of the joys of travel is visiting new towns and meeting new people. A quote by G. Con. I wonder what the G stands for. Genghis. Ah, what a shining example of civilization, chortled Oz exuberantly as he peered about him, delighted as a child on his first outing. We were sauntering casually down one of the lesser-used streets of Twixt. Garbage and beggars were strewn casually about while beady rodent eyes, human and inhuman, studied us from the darkened doors and windows. It was a cluster of buildings crouched around an army outpost which was manned more from habit than necessity. The soldiers we occasionally encountered had degenerated enough from the crisp recruiting poster model that it was frequently difficult to tell which seemed more menacing and unsavory, the guards or the obviously criminal types they were watching. If you ask me, it looks more like mankind at its worst, I mumbled darkly. That's what I said, a shining example of civilization. There wasn't much I could say to that, not feeling like getting baited into another one of Oz's philosophical lectures. Oz, is it my imagination, or are people staring at us? Relax, kid. In a town like this, the citizens will always instinctively size up a stranger. They're trying to guess if we're victims or victimizers. Our job is to make sure that they think we're in the second category. To illustrate his point, he suddenly whirled and crouched like a cat, glaring back down the street with a hand on his sword hilt. There was a sudden movement at the windows and doorways as roughly a dozen half-seen forms melted back into the darkness. One figure didn't move. A trollop leaning on a windowsill, her arms folded to display her ill-covered breast, smiled invitingly at him. He smiled and waved. She ran an insolent tongue tip slowly down her lip and winked broadly. Oz? Yeah, kid, he replied without taking his eyes from the girl. I hate to interrupt, but you're supposed to be a doddering old man, remember? Oz was still disguised as Garkin, a fact which seemed to have momentarily slipped his mind. Oh yeah, I guess you're right, kid. It doesn't seem to bother anyone else, though. Maybe they're used to feisty old men in this town. Well, could you at least stop going for your sword? That's supposed to be our surprise weapon. Oz was wearing the assassin's cloak now, which he quickly pulled forward again to hide his sword. Will you get off my back, kid? Like I said, nobody seems to be paying any attention. Nobody? I jerked my head pointedly toward the girl in the window. Her? She's not paying any more attention to us than she is anyone else on the street. Really? Well, if she is, it's more because of you than because of me. Me? Come on, Oz. Don't forget, kid, you're a pretty impressive person now. I blinked. That hadn't occurred to me. I had forgotten I was disguised as Quigley now. He had hidden the demon hunter wow. He had hidden the demon hunter just outside of town. Well, actually, we buried him. I've been shocked by the suggestion at first, but as Oz pointed out, the statue didn't need any air, and it was only a surefire way we had of ensuring he wouldn't be found by anyone else. Even the war unicorn following us, now fully saddled and armored, did not help me keep my new identity in mind. We had been traveling together too long now. I suppose I should have gotten some satisfaction from the fact that I could now maintain not only one, but two disguises without consciously thinking about it. I didn't. I found it unnerving that I had to remember other people were seeing me differently than I was seeing myself. I shot a glance at the trollop. As our eyes met, her smile broadened noticeably. She displayed her increased enthusiasm by leaning further out of the window until I began to worry about her falling out of the window, or her dress. What did I tell you, kid? Oz slapped me enthusiastically on the shoulder and winked lewdly. I'd rather she was attracted to me for me, as I really am, I grumbled darkly. The price of success, kid, Oz responded philosophically. Well, no matter. We're here on business, remember? Right, I said firmly. I turned to continue our progress and succeeded only in whacking Oz soundly in the leg with my sword. Hey, watch it, kid. It seemed there was more to this sword carrying than met the casual eye. Sorry, Oz, I apologized. This thing's a bit point heavy. Yeah, how would you know? My comrade retorted. Well, I said, that won't do it, kid. What's point heavy for me may not be point heavy for you. Weapon balance is a personal thing. Well, I guess I'm just not used to wearing a sword, I admitted. It's easy. Just forget you're wearing it. Think of it as a part of you. I did. That's when I hit you. We'll go into it more later. There we go. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the trollop. She clapped her hands in silent applause and blew me a kiss. I suddenly realized she thought I had deliberately hit Oz, a premeditated act to quell a rival. What's more, she approved of the gesture. I looked at her again, more closely this time. Maybe later I would give Oz the slip for a while, and... We've got to find Frumple, Oz's voice interrupted my wandering thoughts. Oh, how, Oz? Through guile and cunning. Watch this, kid. So saying, he shot a quick glance up and down the street. A pack of 3 urchins had just rounded the corner, busily engaged in a game of keep-away with one of the group's hat. Hey, Oz hailed them. Where can I find the shop of Abdul the rug dealer? 2 streets up and 5 to the left, they called back, pointing the direction. See, kid, that wasn't hard. Terrific, I responded, unimpressed. Now what's wrong, kid? I thought we were trying to avoid unnecessary attention. Don't worry, kid. Don't worry. We're on our way to meet a devil on a supposedly secret mission, and you seem to be determined to make sure everybody we see notices us and knows where we're going. Look, kid, how does a person normally act when they come into a new town? I don't know, I admitted. I haven't been in that many towns. Well, let me sketch it out for you. They want to be noticed. They carry on and make lots of noise. They stare at the women and wave at the people they've never seen before. But that's what we've been doing, right? Now you understand? No. Oz heaved an exasperated sigh. Come on, kid. Think a minute, even if it hurts. We're acting like anyone else would be walking into a strange town. Oh, we're acting like anyone else would, walking into a strange town, so nobody will look at us twice. They won't pay any more attention to us than they would any other newcomer. Now, if we followed your suggestion and came sulking into town, not talking to anyone or looking at anything, and tried real hard not to be noticed, then everyone and his kid brother would zero in on us and try to figure out what we were up to. Now, do you understand? I think so. Good, because there's our target. I blinked and looked in the direction of his pointing finger. There, squatting between a blacksmith's forge and a leather worker's displays, was the shop. As I said, I was new to city life, but I would have recognized it as a rug merchant's shop, even if it was not adorned with a large sign proclaiming it as such. The entire front of the shop was lavishly decorated with colorful geometric patterns, apparently meant to emulate the patterns of the rugs inside. I guess it was intended to look rich and prosperous. I found it unforgivably gaudy. I'd been so engrossed in our conversation I had momentarily forgotten our mission. With the shop now confronting us at close range, however, my nervousness came back in a rush. What are we going to do, Oz? Well, first of all, I think I'm going to get a drink. A drink? Right. If you think I'm going to match wits with a devil on an empty stomach, you've got another thing coming. A drink? I repeated, but Oz was gone, striding purposely toward the nearby tavern. There was little for me to do but follow, leading the unicorn. The tavern was a dingy affair, even to my rustic eye. A faded awning sullenly provided shade for a small cluster of scarred wooden tables. Flies buzzed around, a cat sleeping on one side of the tables. At least, I like to assume it was asleep. As I tied the unicorn to one of the awning supports, I could hear Oz bellowing at the innkeep for 2 of his largest flagons of wine. I sighed, beginning to despair that Oz would never fully adopt to his old man disguise. The innkeep did not seem to notice any irregularity between Oz's appearance and his drinking habits, however. It occurred to me that Oz might be right in his theories of how to go unnoticed. City people seem to be accustomed to loud, rude individuals of any age. "Sit down, kid," Oz commanded. "You're making me nervous hovering around like that." "I thought we were going to talk with the devil," I grumbled, sinking into the chair. "Relax, kid. A few minutes one way or the other won't make that much difference. Besides, look." A young, well-dressed couple was entering the rug shop. "See? We couldn't have done any business anyway. At least not until they left. The kind of talk we're going to have can't be done in front of witnesses." Ah, the innkeeper arrived, clinking the 2 flagons of wine down on the table in a lackluster manner. "About time," Oz commented, seizing a flagon in each hand and immediately draining one. "Aren't you going to have anything, kid?" A toss of his head, and the second flagon was gone. "While my friend here makes up his mind, bring me 2 more, and make them decent sizes this time. If you have to, use a bucket." The innkeep retreated, visibly shaken. I wasn't. I'd already witnessed Oz's capacity for alcohol, astounding in an era noted for heavy drinkers. What did vex me a bit was that the man had departed without taking my order. I did eventually get my flagon of wine, only to find my stomach was too nervous to readily accept it. As a result, I wound up sipping it slowly. Not so Oz. He continued to belt them down at an alarming rate. For quite some time he drank. In fact, we sat for nearly an hour, and there was still no sign of the couple who had entered the shop. Finally, even Oz began to grow impatient. "I wonder what's taking them so long," he grumbled. "Maybe they're having trouble making up their mind," I suggested. "Come on, kid, the shop's not that big. He can't have too large a selection." He downed the last of his wine and stood up. "We've waited long enough," he declared. "Let's get this show on the road." "But what about the couple?" I reminded him. "We'll just have to inspire them to conclude their business with a bit more speed." That had a vaguely ominous ring to it, and Oz's toothy grin was additional evidence that something unpleasant was about to happen. I was about to try to dissuade him, but he started across the street with a purposeful stride that left me standing alone. I hurried to catch up with him, leaving the unicorn behind in my haste. Even so, I was unable to overtake him before he had entered the shop. I plunged after him, fearing the worst. I needn't have worried. Except for the proprietor, the shop was empty. There was no sign of the couple anywhere. That's the end of chapter 11. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you, and I will see you for the next chapter. Bye.